Adam, if industrial design were breakfast, you'd be slightly charred bacon.
Very nice. Welcome to Engineer vs. Designer,
The podcast.
for product design, shop talk, and 3D digital design Geek Fest. My name is Adam, industrial designer for CADjunkie.com.
My name is Josh, mechanical engineer, and I run a little site called SolidSmack.com.
And this is exciting, my friends. This is our very first episode, and we are stoked. It's going to go a little something like this. Each week's show is broken into 3 halves, and first we're going to bring you top stories from this week's 3D CAD news, brought to you by SolidSmack.com.
Followed by tips, tricks, and Q&A compliments of CADjunkie.com.
And finally, an interview with a special guest.
Today, we are incredibly lucky to have Al Dean on the line from Develop3D.com.
Al, you're amazing.
Al, you're amazing. Truly one of my favorite British people of all time.
How many British people do you know?
2.
Okay. Al, we're going to be hearing more from you as the show goes on, but now it is time to get down to business, people. Josh Mings of SolidSmack.com. Do you hear that music?
Yes. No.
Of course you don't, because I'm going to add that later. But the music you do not hear signifies that the time has come for you to shower your wisdom upon us like so much Jamba Juice and a ceiling fan. What have you got for us this week?
This week's Solid Smack Update is brought to you by Anti-Space Claim's Spicy Jemima CAD Cam Sauce. It's pure direct modeling sweetness for your digital manufacturing environment. Find out more and grab a free download at spaceclaim.com. Tasty.
It is tasty.
Here we go. Possibly the biggest piece of tech news over the past couple weeks
It really has nothing to do with CAD.
to do at all with CAD, but could definitely make an impact on collaboration. This month, in the wide world of internet culture, Google has launched their new social network. In a feeble attempt to keep our guest Al Dean from his gardening,
That's never going to happen. You'll prize it out of my cold, dead hands.
according to Google, it's a way to make sharing easier. But who needs another way to connect to people? So the question is, what does this do for design collaboration?
It's Google. And they're trying to copy Facebook. I don't get it. As Josh well knows, I'm not a big fan of the whole thing. But it's, it's when you're sat there in a working day looking at a picture of your second cousin's cat, and it's not for me, man. I don't get it.
Do you like Facebook?
No, I think it's evil. It's
All right.
only slightly less evil than Google.
Well, so actually, I'm exactly the opposite, which really works well here. Because I also hate Facebook, however, think they're slightly more evil.
I would
than
have to
Google.
agree.
So for me, what I think is cool about this, and the reason that I suck at social networking, and I suck
He does.
at social networking. For me, I don't like to use Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and MySpace and whatever the hell else. I really like that I would have the opportunity to do kind of all of those things at once with Google+.
Yeah, but the thing is you can't, so you're out of luck.
Well said. Please explain.
Well, they don't have it set up to be able to send out to all your other little networks.
Oh, no. I
So-
don't mean like that. I don't mean like actually send to Twitter. That's not what I mean. I go to Twitter because I want to send something to the whole wide world. And I go to Facebook if I want to send something to people that I relate with casually. And I go to LinkedIn if I want to send something professional, right? And so, with Google+, I have outlets for all of this.
Is it going to be another thing where in a year's time it's just going to be you and Tom on MySpace? Just
Yes.
like me, I'm the only guy with the +1.
Yes, it will.
That's pretty fucking desperate,
Yeah, but
I'll be honest.
but it'll be you and me with the dream. We'll be living the dream, my friend.
In a nasty user interface. I
Oh,
cannot
you don't like
contain
it?
my excitement.
There you go.
All right. Josh, what's next?
Second item, acquisitions. So exciting. Who doesn't love a good acquisition? Am I right?
I don't
This
really,
week,
I don't really care anything about it.
Well, this week we have 2. 3D printer manufacturer 3D Systems acquired that 3D system software developer, Alibre.
That one that nobody has ever heard of?
That's the one. And Autodesk
Yeah.
acquired a Flash-based online photo editor, Pixlr. Both pretty good. Both pretty big news in their own right for 3D Systems because it completes their 3D content to print ideal that they keep going on about. For Autodesk because it complements both their Sketchbook Mobile and Pro software and their 3D photo stitcher PhotoFly with a web-based photo editing platform. So, do these acquisitions impact the CAD industry, or is it simply a futile effort by both?
Can I just ask a question real quick? Did you throw in the connection with PhotoFly, or was that something that they've published?
That's something I threw in. Yeah.
The connection between Pixlr and PhotoFly, yeah, because I don't see how those really relate to each other.
Well, they're both online photo editing.
So the connection is they both have photo in their name.
They both have photo in their name. How much clearer can it be?
What am I working with here?
It's beyond me why they chose that one. There's definitely better options out there. Like Aviary would have been a much better option for Autodesk. It lines up with their product line a lot better. But
how do you mean?
Well, they have a way to do vector illustration. They have an online 3D rendering program called Hummingbird that back in 2007, but nothing's actually come out of that. So it just would have lined up a lot better with what Autodesk actually does.
I'm a little more curious about this Alibre thing, and I'm not sure whether this helps Alibre or hurts it.
The thing that I can't quite work out is what they're going to do with it. I mean, I get the whole content to print thing, although as someone that publishes magazines on dead trees, that's kind of old news. You know, Claxton Press, yada yada yada. The fact that you're doing it with some nasty bits of plastic, yeah. I can't quite work out why it is that they would want a Libre. Was it cheap? I mean, you look at it.
They probably got it cheap.
There's something that bothers me about a product that's sold specifically on the fact that it's cheap. And is that something that you want to roll into your brand? I'm not convinced.
Yeah,
but maybe
absolutely.
they'll do some interesting things with it.
Nope, $95 for a Libre design or all of our company assets.
I guess that's the thing, you know, if you hire a carpenter and he turns up with a cheap, nasty set of tools, then you're going to think this guy's a muppet. So why is that different for a designer and engineer? It's just, whatever, I'm done with it. So they buy it, they package it up with their build volume manipulation software, see where it goes, but yeah, it doesn't excite me. Very little does excite me apart from tomatoes right at this minute.
All right, third item today, guys. I am addicted to Kickstarter and Fab.com.
Fab.com?
It's true, yes. Two sites that perpetuate ingenuity, design, and really just buying things you probably don't even need. For example, last week on Fab.com, bought a designer Corten steel flower planter, 40% off. Bought it. The week before, designer beef jerky. Bought. Quite delicious, actually, with the little chipotle and the little pineapple bits.
Is that a lie or is that true? Did you actually do that?
That's actually true. I have 5 bags of beef jerky.
So I want to qualify this. How do you make designer beef jerky? Is that in terms of function, flavour, or form? Is it like in the shape of like an Alessi colander or something?
This is a really existential question.
What's going on with that, man?
Basically, yeah, it's flat little fleshy bits of meat with junk thrown on it.
So it's
and
not in the shape of
nice
Buzz
package.
Lightyear or something?
No, unfortunately not.
They need to work on that shit, I think. Definitely get a Pixar license deal sorted for beef product.
Okay, so you've chosen to group that together with Kickstarter?
Yeah, equally addictive. It's not any better. You see, so the engineers, designers, all the creative types on there, they pull you in with their convincing backstory, their little video. Then they tempt you with these levels of rewards. You get something for however much money you throw into the project.
Well, look, I mean, but I know both of these websites are not places to get useless stuff. Kickstarter is actually, it's about, it's about funding, right? Tell me.
Oh, no, yeah, definitely. It's about crowdfunding. It's about getting funds for your project. And really one of my favorite ones on there has been the I Draw Cars project that was funded very quickly. What they did is they came up with an idea for a book to show people how they draw cars and how they can do it too. And it's a combination book/sketchbook, so you can actually do it yourself.
Is it as good as the gangster rap coloring book, which was possibly the best book I've ever seen?
All right, we are definitely going downhill. Let's just call that time up, people. Let's give us 30 seconds to powder our noses. We're gonna come back.
I got the mirror and razor ready. Oh, no, not that type. Okay, yeah, good.
Welcome back to the second of three halves of Engineer versus Designer, and this week's CAD Junkie Q&A is brought to you by SpaceClaim. It's what's for breakfast. Put some direct modeling fiber in that diet and see what all the hubbub is about. Grab a free trial at spaceclaim.com. All right, well, anyway, this week's CAD Junkie question comes from Gavin, who is in the UK, and here's what he says.
Hi Adam, it's Gavin. This time last week I had a SolidWorks file referencing disaster. An entire assembly went crazy due to some wonky quirks with Windows and SolidWorks Explorer. Do you have any thoughts on best practices for dealing with cross-referenced SolidWorks files in a collaborative environment?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Well,
so this
for
is
one
where
thing,
we launch into a long and unbelievably boring conversation. So I'm going to sum it up for you. Number one, if you are working with less than 100 parts and those parts are not being reused across multiple products in simultaneous development, I highly recommend working in a single directory using a good, consistent file naming convention. I tend to use something like this: descriptive name, underscore, initials of the person working on the file, underscore, date code, that is year, month, day, underscore, and then a serial number if you want it, .xyz. This way, when I decide to make a major change to a file, I just use file save as with the exact same descriptive name, but update the initials, date code, and or serial number to reflect who made the changes and when. Now, to take the files home, I just do a pack and go onto the laptop, and whenever you want to make a change to a file, just do a save as, swap out those initials, date code, etc., and you are good to go. Bring back the new files to the office, dump them back in the parent folder, and voila, up-to-date assembly. Now, if you're working in a big corporate manufacturing environment with thousands of stock components on file and massive collaboration between teams of disparate CAD ninjas, this method will not work. You're going to need to implement unique part numbers for each component and manage versioning, etc., using an enterprise PLM system. But that is really tedious, and it is probably overkill if you're working in a typical design consulting environment like I do. Now, number two, if you absolutely must use multiple directories for your component files, at the very least keep all of your assembly files at the top level directory, above the child components. As you no doubt found out, SOLIDWORKS will not look up the directory tree for links unless you explicitly tell it to do so using the Tools, Options, File Locations dialog. If you do need to look up in the directory tree, you can manually set it that way, but it's a little bit messy. And finally, number three, I never make references at the assembly level. Some folks might disagree with me on this point, but trust me, I will say that in my experience with CAD, I have never seen anything good come out of cross-linked files in the context of an assembly. It is much better to create all of your common surfaces and parameters in a single master form file, and then reference that file in all of the dependent part files. That just keeps all of your references nice and clean and, importantly, unilateral. To sum it up, I think that the most important thing you can do is to keep directory trees as simple as humanly possible. Avoid creating references at the assembly level at all costs, and above all, be consistent. Come up with a system, make sure the entire team is on board, and stick to it. Good luck. Okay, that might have been the boringest segment ever.
Yeah.
That's pretty dire.
All right, I've got a pop quiz for you guys, and this is the next little short segment. I'm going to run through it. So, you and I know Dassault as the makers of CATIA and SOLIDWORKS, and a pretty important big player in the CAD world, right? So I've got three questions having to do with that French company, taken from the venerable and all-knowing Wikipedia and the Dassault website as well. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So
Let me
number
get
one,
Wikipedia
in what
open
year?
here real quick.
What was that?
Let me get Wikipedia open here real quick.
Way ahead of you, brother.
In what year was Dassault founded? Was it A, 1930, B, 1946, or C, 1977?
I'll go A for Al. 1930.
Come on, Josh. What do you think? You still looking it up? You suck.
Yeah.
Oh, you suck, dude.
Slow connection.
He even sucks at cheating.
well,
That's
if he
ridiculous.
said-
It's you suck at
If he said 1930, I'll do 1946.
yeah, whatever, dude. You already looked it up. It's 1930.
That's one for me.
So one for Al. All right, number two. Company founder Marcel Bloch was born and raised in Paris, and during World War I, one of his first important professional achievements was what? A, he invented a mechanism for accurately plotting differential equations on paper, which failed because it was so extremely expensive. Or B, He designed a new type of aircraft engine, which was problematic because every part of that engine, down to the nuts and bolts, had to be custom manufactured. Or C, he designed a more efficient type of aircraft propeller named after a French cream puff pastry.
I want it to be number C. Or number C? Let's see. Not number C.
Number C, you want it to be number C?
Sometimes
All
a number, sometimes a letter.
Yeah.
All right.
I would say B sounds more like Dassault. Let's just complicate the hell out of it.
Complicate the hell out of it. That's exactly. But Josh, you know what? You just fell for my decoy. Woo! It's C.
C, 2 for the
You're
D.
kidding me.
Nice.
That's, number C was
You did
the
look
answer.
these up before.
It is an aircraft propeller named Eclair.
He's so buffy.
All right, number 3, last one. Marcel Bloch changed his name to Marcel Dassault in 1949, and the company changed the name then. So what did Dassault mean to Marcel Bloch? Why did he change his name? A, it was his mother's maiden name. B, it was the name of his best friend who had been a pilot killed in World War II. Or C, it's a contraction of a slang word for tank and the pseudonym of his brother, a military commander known as the Tank.
Well, it's not B, because World War II was after 1930, so that makes no sense.
Well, he changed his name in 1949.
Okay, let's go for...
So Dassault was founded in 1930, but it wasn't called that at the time.
Ooh! Trick question. I'm gonna go A.
A is mother's maiden name. Josh?
I would have to choose C.
That is it. It is C. Josh,
C.
you redeemed yourself at the last moment.
Nice.
His
The
brother was a
Tank.
military guy known as the Tank.
Did you
And
know
so-
Marcel
actually-
Dassault? There's a character in the Tintin books that's based on him. That's a quite...
Really?
Yeah, it's Laszlo Cariadis. I looked it up earlier. I knew it happened, but I couldn't think of his name. And the Wikipedia entry is brilliant. It just says, it seemed that Hergé based Cariadis on Marcel Dassault, who possessed a similar combination of wealth, aeronautics, engineering genius, and quaint notions of fashion. And then it's got, in parentheses, Dassault's wardrobe remained frozen in the mid-1930s. There you go. Fact for the day.
That. Wow.
Look it up. It's good.
What was that exactly? Show sucks.
Indeed it does, Josh. But you know what does not suck?
Sandwiches hit into my mouth with a large bat.
That is correct and insightful as usual. But you know what else doesn't suck? We've got Al Dean on the line, as you know, from develop3d.com, which is most definitely way up on top of my Google Reader account. Al, we've been talking to you all this time, but now we want to dig a little bit deeper. We want to get to know the real Al Dean.
Adam, don't be creepy.
I am creepy. It's one of my defining characteristics. I don't even know what that means.
How has the CAD industry changed in the 5 decades you've covered it?
How has it changed? Part of me
Yes.
wants to say it's the same super reheated. Another part of me wants to say that stuff just got cheaper. But I think there's a level of maturity these days that's kind of fascinating to watch.
Maturity.
Well, I'm really interested in what you
yeah.
got. What does that mean? What does that mean, the level of maturity has changed?
In terms of, if you look at how people use these tools, the way that they use them compared to 5 decades ago. Thank you, Josh.
Well, how are design and engineering coming together since that time? Or are they still fighting against each other?
Do you think they still are? I think it depends where you're at and what industry you're in. A lot of the companies that we talk to, they don't see a massive differentiation between designer and engineer. There's engineering designers, there's designing engineers. Maybe it's partly maybe it's a North American purview. I don't know. I can't quite work that out. Maybe it's a union thing. I don't know. There seems to be a strange thing with North American manufacturing companies where they have very specific roles of you're a designer or you're an engineer.
Right.
And then you've got the Germans where there's very specific controls on whether you can describe yourself as an engineer. Whereas I guess in the UK where we have most of our contact with people, it kind of gets mixed up.
Al, how can designers and engineers gain exposure to new tools and techniques?
I guess the big thing that I've seen change, that's bad English anyway, I'll roll with it. The big thing that I've seen is, when I started writing rather than being a product designer, it was just on the cusp of the web kicking off. And watching that progress over the last 13, 14 years is kind of fascinating. Just seeing how people can engage with content that's out there. People like yourselves generating the content and making me look like I'm old and farty. There's just so much stuff out there that's really valuable that 15 years ago it would never exist. It's kind of random. Just get out there and see what's out there.
Yeah.
I think there's an argument for trade shows maybe a little bit, but it's just a question of logistics and it being a pain in the arse to turn up, and also the coffee's pretty bad. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there. Just get out there and have a look at it. And of course, Develop 3D is fairly average in all regards, so yeah, it's good.
Okay, Al, that is absolutely not true, and I'm going to skip the last question and change it because this is the first time I've ever talked to you, and I am fascinated. I want to know more. So, how did you get into what you're doing now? You're writing for Develop 3D, which is basically a 3D news blog, right? And so, how did that happen?
I was a fairly bad product designer, and I spent, I was a bad designer and I was a bad engineer, mostly because I can't count above 12, which is a bit of a problem. Eggs I can buy, nothing else. I ended up applying for a job. I was on a 6-month contract using Pro E, designing tooling for fridge handles, which made me lose the will to live. And I used to receive a magazine called, what was it called? CADD News. It was a huge newspaper type thing, computer-aided design and drafting. It was quite epically bad, but they had an advert in there for someone to review CAD software, so I pitched up, got interviewed by the guy that I now own part of D3D with, Martin. I think I got the job because he said I was under 40, I'd used more than AutoCAD, and probably because I told a joke about a paedophile and a werewolf. But I think that was pretty much my entry into the world of journalism. But we started Develop 3D 3 years ago, mostly because we found out we were going to get made redundant, and we're all fairly institutionalised and incapable of working for anyone else. So either we'd be cab drivers swearing at people at random, or we started our own magazine. So there we go. That's how we started it, man.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I'm really truly bummed that this is coming to an end.
Thanks so much to Al Dean for joining us this week.
Why does it have to end?
It's been average.
And to the rest of you for putting up with 17 whole
God knows
minutes.
how many minutes. You are indeed one sick, masochistic bunch, but here's the thing. Engineer versus Designer is an experiment, as I'm pretty sure you can tell. We need your feedback. Chime in on engineerversusdesigner.com and tell us what you think. Special thanks to Ross Hartman for the sweet musical sounds you are hearing right now. Show him some love at rosshartman.com.
We'll see you next week, and remember, without engineers, designers are just a bunch of overhyped hipsters in skinny jeans.
And without designers, engineers would be chick magnets.
Later.